Yeah. All I get a great like that, baby. Let's hop in my Maserati. Baby, hop in my Maserati. I said hop in my Maserati. Hop in my Maserati.
Hey, welcome back to my channel. This is Become Successful with your host, Yemi Osho. On this episode, I bring to you another important personality in person of late Nelson Mandela. He is arguably one of the most influential people that lived in his time. And he was born in 18th July of 1918, and he died on 5th December of 2013. He was a South African anti-apartheid revolutionary statesman and philanthropist who served as president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999. He was the country's first black head of state and the first elected in a fully representative democratic election. His government focused on dismantling the legacy of apartheid by tackling institutionalized racism and fostering racial reconciliation. Ideologically an African nationalist and socialist, he served as a president of African National Congress ANC party from 1991 to 1997. Please sit back, relax, and listen to Top 10 Success Tips by late Nelson Mandela.
Strongly to this fight for freedom. Did you have time for all the rest?
Well, one of the things that I regretted very much, which is of course a problem for all politicians, is the inability to have a dignified and secure home life. Because to go back home at the end of the day, to share the association with your wife, and to play with your children, to sit at table during the evening meal, is the desire of every man. I regretted that very much. There was a time, for example, when my son was about 5 years old, and we were in a campaign, and I had to leave early before he got up, come back home after he was asleep. He had to ask the mother, "Mom, where does my father stay now?" And those things are very painful. Mm-hmm. And when I was underground, my daughter, eldest daughter, Zeni, she was only about 18 months. She came to a place where I had arranged to see them whilst I was underground. And she looked at my attire and felt that there must be some part of my clothing around this house. Mm-hmm. And she looked around because I had taken away my disguise and hidden it. Yeah. She looked around, saw it, pulled it out, gave it to me, grabbed my hand and said, "Dad, let's go home." So as I tried to persuade her that, look, I will come back one day, she just cried. And it was embarrassing because we're in a European, in a flat, mm-hmm. In a building of flats occupied by Europeans only, and the crying could attract attention. But those are some of the bitter moments I sometimes recall, when my child, wants the care and the love and the security of his father, she cannot have it.
Would you say this was the highest prize? In many ways, banned, and you were also in prison for a couple of years. But then you were convicted in 1964 for conspiracy against the state. And when you pleaded, you said that I am willing to die for this cause. This is a very tough thing to say.
Yes, I had to say that, not from a spirit of bravado, but because I genuinely felt that they were going to hang us. And it is the desire of every freedom fighter to disappear under a cloud of glory rather than that of shame. It is the task of a freedom fighter, when you see that the end of your days has come, to live a tradition of bravery, determination to face even death for your principles. And I thought about it. It was not because I was brave, but because one had a duty to perform at that moment.
You were sentenced to life in prison. You were moved to Robben Island. It's a very, very tough place. How could you keep up your spirit?
Well, the position is that I was not alone. I was with about 30 others in my section. Men of a real ability and with a high level of education. They studied some overseas.
And you did too?
Yes, qualified in universities overseas. And to sit down and talk to them was a real privilege, because every time you sat down with them, they widened your horizons. And then we had time to read all kinds of literature, which also enriched your own attitude and spirit. And equally important was the ability to sit down and to think, something which I don't have outside jail. To sit down and think and to do nothing else is an important part of your struggle. And by sitting down and standing away from yourself and looking at your past work, the mistakes that you have made, is one of the most important moments in the life of anybody, in particular of a politician.
Ja, det här är allt.
But the dominating feeling was one of a conviction that whatever difficulties I have, I will return, and our struggle will triumph in the end. That was the dominating theme. But within that context, there were moments when one doubted whether, in fact, we will succeed. There were moments when the enemy appeared too strong, when the organization was in disarray, in tatters. And in those moments, you had to think realistically and to say, can I, from myself, help my colleagues outside who are doing such monumental work and sacrificing themselves? And in those moments, the feeling of helplessness was there, especially when I saw my colleagues like Oliver Tambo, a man who had a BSc degree, a musician, a very accomplished musician, wonderful speaker, struggling in order to ensure that freedom comes to this country and that his colleagues in jails are liberated. And when I saw my wife and children being humiliated without the security.
You hope during these moments?
Baban?
What could give you hope during these
as
black
I
moments?
say, my friends,
Your
were
friends
there.
in the prison.
The literature I read showed how freedom fighters were in a similar situation and even worse, and how they triumphed in the end.
But it's
And
hard.
then the ability to sit down and think and to see our people outside, and nevertheless, in spite of all the problems, keeping the fires of liberation burning.
But still, I mean, when I try to identify with you, it's very, very hard to do that. I mean, you had children. You didn't see your two baby daughters until they were 16 years old.
Yes.
Your eldest son died in a car accident. Your mother died. Your wife, Winnie, was, as you said, humiliated. She was put in prison. I mean, what made you not become bitter?
No, as I say, I had this company of very gifted, very talented comrades around me. And you must also remember that right from the beginning of our sentences, there was a very serious debate amongst warders themselves. Some saying, let's treat these men severely so that they should never again challenge white supremacy. There were others who said, no, we are making a mistake. These people in history frequently win, and these might win. And when they do, they will treat us harshly as we do. Let us treat them decently and give them all the privileges so that when they come into power, they should not be bitter against us. Indeed, they won in the sense that they were able to make our conditions in prison relatively comfortable. But of course, it was our organization outside the country, outside the jail, in the country and abroad, that really brought about these changes. But the warders themselves made some sort of humble contribution.
Okay.
And that is why I invited some of them to my inauguration and to the first session of Parliament.
During the You were finally free. The 11th of February 1990, they let you out after 27 years. What was the most intense feeling that you had this day?
Well, I always find it difficult to look back and to identify such moments. But I was called by de Klerk on the 9th of that month, 2 days before my release. And he told me that I was going to be released on the Sunday. Well, that was exciting. But at the same time, I wanted that our people must be given a proper notice that I'm coming out. And so we debated this, and it looked ironic that the jailer must say, go away. And I said, look, give me at least 2 weeks.
So you postponed the freedom, actually?
Well, more or less. And but that was a moment of conflict in me, because I wanted to go out as soon as possible. At the same time, I wanted to give my colleagues the opportunity to prepare for my release. And of course, one of the things I wanted to do was to be able to say thank you to the warders who look after me. And I had arranged for them, to stand outside next to the gate so that I can shake their hands and those of their families. I had no idea of the size of the crowd that was waiting for me outside. And when I saw that crowd, it aroused feelings of excitement I couldn't control, I couldn't describe, welled up inside me. And it was, I thought of my colleagues who had struggled to bring about this day, some of whom paid the highest price, paid with their lives. All these things, milled around, my mind. And I was in this state of turmoil as I came out. But nevertheless, the dominating thing was that I am free at last.
The situation now in South Africa is very...
I am free at last.
The situation now in South Africa is very tough in many ways. I've been around a little and I've seen, the unemployment is up to almost 60% among the blacks. Crime rate is up higher than ever. People live in shacks, the poor people. When do you see a turning point?
Pardon?
When do you see a turning point?
Oh, I see. Well, I think it's too early to expect a government which has been in power for 6 months to have solved such ugly questions. You have seen, for example, what happened to the Depression in 1933. how long did it take the leaders of those days who had all the qualifications, who had all the resources, who had all the infrastructure. They couldn't prevent that depression, and when it occurred, it took years before they could solve the problems connected with that situation. Why should we be expected to be able to solve these matters in 6 months? It's difficult to put deadlines for problems of socio-economic problems of this nature. All that we can tell you is that the plans that we have worked out are on course. And we believe, therefore, that in due course, we will be able to address these problems.
Apartheid.
They are superficial in their approach.
Johann Heinz was assassinated only 3 days ago. Are you yourself afraid of assassination?
Scores of freedom fighters have been assassinated during the last 2 to 3 decades. We are a collective, we're a team. It doesn't matter who goes. There are capable men and women who are leading this organization. And the sunlight in which we are now bathing was created not by those who were relaxing in prison for 27 years, but by our comrades who were struggling under very difficult conditions to ensure that the fires of freedom keep burning in the country. And as far as assassinations are concerned, these assassinations have been going. And if anybody becomes alarmed about them, you'll be paralyzed, you'll never do anything.
When you see Africa today, there are a lot of very, very big problems.
With them, if I can.
Do you believe in God?
Well, that is a matter which is intimate and which is the concern of the individual himself, and not to be paraded. But I can tell you that I was baptized in the church. I used to attend church until I was drawn into politics, and I had to have commitments on a Sunday. And in prison, there were various denominations that came to minister to us. I made it a point to attend every church service outside my own denomination. I kept a steady correspondence with people like Archbishop Tutu and others. And one of the things I did when I was appointed president was to go to all the religious groups, to the Muslims, to the mosque, to the Jewish synagogue, and to the churches of the Dutch Reformed Church, to the Christian churches, in order to show our appreciation to the role religion had played in our lives and in our liberation.
Do you still keep the glove that Mike Tyson sent you?
Oh yes, no, I have.
After he won the championship?
Which have contributed to an enormous volume of injuries. There is no hue and cry against them. And I think society should be even-handed.
How is your health?
Well, my health for my age is reasonably good.
You have a little problem with your eye?
Well, I suffered from dry tears in Robben Island. So they have done something to my tear ducts in order to give me tears.
Yeah.
But the flow of tears now is a little bit more than I want.
But when you were in prison, you mean you could never cry?
Well, you don't know. There were secret moments in which I did all sorts of things I wouldn't like to admit in public.
Is it true that when you came to Stockholm to get the Nobel Prize, that you secretly sneaked out of the hotel early in the morning without the security guards knowing?
Well, I do that now and again because I like moments, when I can move alone. I like that.
So you did that in Stockholm too?
Well, I did that in Stockholm. I do that in South Africa as well.
Okay.
At the time.
Who do you admire?
Well, that has always been a difficult question. Diplomatically, it's completely unwise to say I admire so-and-so and you offend others. But I admire men and women who have made the world the theater of their operations, who try to fight human rights wherever they are violated, and who wanted to put a little bit of sunshine in the hearts of others, who wanted to make other people feel that it is worth to live. Those are my heroes.
It's very funny, when I interview you, it's mostly very easy to find critical questions to put to somebody like you. But you seem so thoroughly good, in a way, like Mother Teresa to me. Could you help me? What are your biggest faults?
Faults?
Your faults. Do you have any?
Well, I have a lot of faults. If you ask my friend over there in the National Executive, they hammer me from beginning to end.
Yes.
Because of the mistakes I've made. And so I am no messiah. And that is why I have opposed any idea to try and raise my level to that of a messiah. I have never been. I'm an ordinary human being. And I don't want everybody to give me a status which I do not deserve. Assure me that you're...
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Become Successful with Yemi Osho. If you like the content of this video, kindly like the video, share with family and friends, and make recommendation by using the comment section. I would like to read from you. Tell me what resonates so much with you. What did you learn? What are those things I can do to improve? What are those things that you can do to improve and live an inspiring life? This is what this channel is all about. If you're new to this channel, kindly subscribe. And if you have subscribed, smash the notification bell to get notified in case of any new release. And I will see you on the next episode. Peace.